good evening. You've joined us right here on the India Development Debate. I'm Taneia Bhardwaj coming to you live from our Mumbai studios, and there is no let-up on the war on Rafale. A day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi brushed aside charges of corruption on Rafale and allegedly favouring Anil Ambani in awarding offset contract, it was time for the Congress president today to hit back. In a blistering attack, Rahul Gandhi has launched a direct attack at the Prime Minister, saying that Narendra Modi doesn't have the guts to come to Parliament and confront questions on Rafale. Rahul Gandhi raised a few questions on pricing, process, selection of offset partner, all, of course, directed to the Prime Minister. Now, he's also repeated his demand of a JPC probe. In fact, the Congress president was keen on playing an audio tape that allegedly spoke of how the then Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar had possession of Rafale files, but he was denied permission by the Speaker. It's then that the Finance Minister dared him to authenticate or verify the audio tape, and pandemonium broke out. After the proceedings resumed, the Finance Minister returned the fire in equal measure and deployed point by point to all the questions raised by the Congress president. The Finance Minister is claiming that the deal is 9% cheaper than what was struck by the UPA and due process was followed. However, he's ruled out any JPC probe, saying there's no scope of JPC after the clean chit was given by the Supreme Court. Let's first get you a slice of that face-off on the floor of the House.
Who changed? Who changed the requirement of the Air Force from 126 to 36? Did something change with the requirement of national security? Did the Air Force request the government? Did the Air Force ask the government, tell the government that no, we do not want 126 planes, we want only 36 planes?
From the first to the last word, every word spoken in the last 6 months on this subject, including in this House, is utterly false.
So the next question to the Prime Minister is, why did the price go from 526 crores to 1600 crores?
एक 500 का था जो हम ला रहे थे, जो ये लाए वो 1600 का है. It only shows, and it's a tragedy for this country, that the grand old party of Indian politics, the Congress party, which has in the past been headed by great legends, is today headed by a gentleman who doesn't even have a basic understanding of what a combat aircraft is.
हम चाहते हैं कि जेपीसी लागू होए, और जो सच्चाई देश सुनना चाहती है वो देश के सामने आए.
जेपीसी क्यों नहीं हो सकती? जब इसमें विषय क्या है? प्रोसेस, प्राइसिंग, ऑफसेट, एचएएल, सब पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट का फैसला आ गया, तो इस फैसले के विरुद्ध जाना, कौन सी पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी इस फैसले के विरुद्ध अपनी रिपोर्ट दे सकती है? दिस इज नॉट अ पॉलिसी मैटर. This is not an administrative or a governance matter. It's an investigation whether it's a clean deal or not a clean deal. The Supreme Court has said we have satisfied our conscience after seeing the prices.
It is the Rafale Ruckus then that we're going to put the spotlight on this evening here on the India Development Debate, and for that we've got joining in BJP spokesperson Hitesh Jain. From the Congress party, Mr. Rajiv Gowda joins in. We've got a consultant and strategic affairs expert Maruf Raza with us here in the studios, and political commentator and columnist Neerja Chaudhary is here with us as well. Good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for sparing the time. Neerja, I'm going to start with you. Claims, counter-claims flying thick and fast today on the floor of the House over India's deal to buy 36 Rafale fighter aircraft. Is it looking like an issue that's been resurrected for political purpose, or would you say there is some merit in some of the claims being made?
I think whatever the merit in the claims that are being made and the rebuttal that came from the finance minister also very, very strong. Normally Mr. Arun Jaitley is measured in his tone, giving arguments. Today he really let fly. He called Rahul liar. He recalled the money transactions of the family in different scams and so on. And Rahul Gandhi too was very strong in the 3 points he was making: pricing, procedure and patronage to Anil Ambani. Very clearly articulated. So I think we got a two things. We got a foretaste of the pitch at which the 2019 elections are going to be fought. It's going to be, this kind of allegations which will mount. Secondly, as far as the Rafale thing is concerned, yes, with the Supreme Court verdict, it had been virtually buried. Today, Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party, by having that discussion and in the way they charge the government, yes, they have revived the issue again.
Maruf, we can't not bring politics into it. And the latest so-called disclosure in this saga is that of purported tapes, the authenticity of which we can't verify. But apparently the Congress is claiming that a few days ago in a cabinet meeting in Goa, you had Chief Minister Manohar Parrikar, who's of course the former Defence Minister, sort of losing his cool over cabinet colleagues and saying that he cannot be removed as he has a copy of the Rafale file. Mr. Parrikar in that alleged leak tape didn't reveal whether, they contain anything explosive. But the question that I'm really trying to ask you is, will the Rafale deal be held hostage to a slew of, these conspiracy theories? And so do we run the risk of jeopardizing our country's defense preparedness?
You see, the first thing is that as far as I see it, it's very clearly a design by the Congress party to recreate the saga of Bofors, in which they were also subjected to a JPC, and finally the JPC did clear the Bofors gun as capable enough for India, and it proved its merit in the Kargil conflict. So quite clearly, the Rafale also, even if it goes through the JPC exercise, whether Mr. Jaitley is right or not, I don't know. But the fact is, if it goes through it, I'm pretty certain that you cannot find at this point of time amongst the shortlisted 6 aircrafts and down to the last 2, of which Rafale was one, as anything better for the money that we are willing to pay for fighter aircrafts. Now come to the issue about what was said and who is getting the benefit of this arrangement. And constantly this figure has been thrown up of 30,000 crores going to the Ambanis. I mean, this is bizarre. Either Rahul Gandhi has not been briefed in detail, or Rahul Gandhi is obviously playing up something which the BJP-led government is feeling shy to rebut effectively. The deal at this point of time was for 36 aircrafts, which is 59,000 crores as we understand in the public domain, of which 30% is going to go into the defense offset process, which is 18,000 crores or thereabout, of which the CEO of Rafale has said 10% or so has gone to Mr. Ambani's company, and they have something like 70 to 100 offset partners. So Ambani is not going to walk away with 30,000 crores in his pocket. Neither are the French stupid, nor are Indian politicians, nor are the Indian armed forces that they would leave so much money in one man's hands. And finally, and most importantly, we must understand that while they are exchanging barbs at each other, what is important is do not delay the acquisition and the purchase of these aircrafts beyond the point that our Air Force becomes ineffective to deal with the dual threats of China and Pakistan. And it is for that reason that the Air Force had strongly recommended to Mr. Modi's government that if you, till you finalize the 126 aircraft deal, who gets it, who doesn't get it, give us at least 36, which is 2 squadrons to deal with dual threats. It doesn't mean that you're not going to buy the other 90 odd aircrafts which make up the 126 requirement of the Air Force. You'll still buy them, but you can take your time over the next 10 years to do it, like you took 15 plus years to finalize this deal.
Okay. Hitesh Jain, let me ask you, you've agreed for a Rafale debate on Parliament and full marks to you for that. But shouldn't the Prime Minister have been attending this session today and refuting charges from the opposition, which day in and day out is training its guns on him, saying Chaukidar chor hai, with reference to the Rafale deal? In a press conference that you had Rahul Gandhi hold, he said all he wants is 20 minutes one-on-one with the Prime Minister. Why not just get it done with?
Well, if there is any substance in the debate, I can understand that the Prime Minister should come and definitely respond to the questions raised by Rahul Gandhi.
Okay.
But what has happened today, the debate has clearly exposed that Rahul Gandhi is only lying. And when he is lying, there is no need to respond to such lies. He lied about the conversation with Macron, which was denied by the French president on that day. He lied about the Mirage being manufactured by HAL. There is no proof or material over there. What are the facts that have been placed before in his speech had nothing new. Pricing, process, offset and HAL. All the four issues the Supreme Court has dealt with, and the Supreme Court has given a thumping verdict on all the four issues. And what was Rahul Gandhi talking? Only about the four things. Now, when the Supreme Court has given the wording on pricing, process, offset, HAL, and his biggest thing about Reliance, his AA, Anil Ambani, what he is talking, the Supreme Court has clearly said that there is no commercial favoritism. After the Supreme Court, after scrutinizing all the facts, they have come to the conclusion that there is no commercial favoritism. What remains now to be further to be debated? He is like a little child who is on some path of revenge, that you called my father a chore and therefore I want to extract this revenge, and I will also call some opposition party members with the same thing. So when a person is on a different trip, you do not expect the Prime Minister to come and respond to all the answers. And as far as all these answers are concerned, Prime Minister has spoken in the Parliament, he has spoken in the election campaign, he has spoken in various interviews that he has given. What more does he expect? Merely because he continues with his tirade every time, it doesn't require a response. Like every time he is going to speak a lie so that the Prime Minister should come. I am sure there are so many other relevant discussions in which the Prime Minister can participate.
Right. Rajiv Gowda, please do respond to that. And you know, one more charge in the UPA is that it had nearly 3 years to seal the Rafale deal and it didn't. How would you respond to criticism that comes your way that after 5-year-long protracted price negotiations between 2000 and 2012, you didn't finalize the contract?
When you're dealing with the nation's money, you have to make sure that every procedure is followed properly. You cannot afford any questions on a deal of this magnitude, something that involves national security. That lesson is not available to Mr. Modi, who had chose to go out there and violate every procedure, pay 3 times the price, all to ensure that his crony would get a certain amount of benefit. Now, the basic point is, if you look at what these people have been talking about, they've been hiding behind the Supreme Court verdict. What does the Supreme Court verdict really base itself on? It is based on a false submission by this government that the CAG, the Controller and Auditor General of India, and the Public Accounts Committee, of which I am a member, have both cleared the procedures and the prices, and have therefore, and then that a redacted version of that report had been cleared by Parliament. This was all submitted. This huge concocted set of falsehoods was submitted to the Supreme Court, on the basis of which the Supreme Court said, well, if these constitutionally mandated bodies have not found anything wrong with the process and things like that, well, then we are going to go ahead with it. And there is no clean chit. This government, which has lied to the Supreme Court, which is taking shelter behind that verdict, which is founded on a false set of foundations, this government has no right to stay in office for one single day longer.
That's a question I will put to the BJP spokesperson in just a bit. But Neecha, let's keep it with the politics for just a little bit more. Even the Shiv Sena, the BJP's, so-called sort of troubled or estranged allies, questioning the government over the handing of the offset clause to Reliance instead of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. You have the BJD, the BJP's former ally, even Sharad Pawar's NCP, which, maintains a pretty decent rapport with the Prime Minister, questioning the wisdom of Hindustan Aeronautics not being awarded the offset contract. Are these parties playing politics with an eye on the poll, and will the BJP have trouble maybe convincing any of them should we see a split verdict?
I think, yeah, you're right. The regional parties, including the BJP's own ally, Shiv Sena, of course, has been lampooning the BJP on every count, even charging the PM of being chore. Uddhav Thackeray had said this, and he borrowed Rahul Gandhi's words, which is very strange, and the BJP has been silent, and the Shiv Sena continues to be part of the government. It's a very very awkward kind of situation. But yes, the regional parties have expressed disquiet, have raised questions, have called for the JPC along with the Congress. So yes, of course everybody has their eye on the election, what is going to suit them. But you know, so far at the ground level, Rafale did not have traction. In the recently held state elections, people were not talking about Rafale. They were talking about farming distress, unemployment, demonetization, GST, which had created hardships for them. But not Rafale. Hardly anybody talked about it. But now I think it remains to be seen in the new year with this kind of debate, questioning resurfacing, whether it's more questions are going to be asked. And as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, even if the Prime Minister has spoken of this in Parliament earlier, and yesterday in his interview to the ANI, he spoke with anguish about the devaluation of Parliament as an institution. I would have thought the Prime Minister would sit through this debate, even if he disagreed with every word that Rahul Gandhi was saying. That's what parliamentary debate and discussion and the rough and the cut and thrust of parliamentary debate is all about. So the leader, I would have expected, you know, would be there, no matter what his sentiments on the subject.
Manav, how much of the blame does it lie with the government to, you know, fuel this supposed dogfight, controversy, ruckus? Why don't they reveal the actual numbers to the opposition, you know, maybe take them into confidence? Why is the government sort of giving out these prices in bits and bobs? You know, is it really that big a secret?
Actually, that's a very good question, and I've in the past also opinionated on that. The first thing is, I think there's been a certain amount of arrogance and there has been a certain amount of lack of meticulousness on the part of the government in not dealing with the problem and nipping it in the bud. Had they taken the opposition parties into confidence and had a confidential under oath briefing about what the deal is all about when it was beginning to spiral out of control, I think the matter could have rested there. But why they had this death wish, only they and their spokesperson can answer. But I want to touch on 2-3 quick issues. One is about the pricing. Mr. Rahul Gandhi keeps talking about, every Congress spokesperson says that how has the price jumped threefold. I want to ask all of them, firstly, would they drive cars on a highway or a motorway without wipers, without headlights, without a horn, even in a winter's day without heating or in a summer's day without air conditioning, and all the other assets that good modern cars have? Please understand, aircrafts are state-of-the-art technology. You can't take them into battle with the kind of numbers that Mr. Gandhi is floating, 540 or 630 crores or whatever is the figure that is being talked about. That was a figure that was agreed upon for bare shell of the aircraft, minus all the war fighting fitments like missiles, radars, chaffing system, air-to-air refueling capacity, the range and the backup servicing that is going to be provided so that the aircraft, more than 75% of the fleet is serviceable or whatever. These were the figures that make the cost go up. All deals that we have done in the past, you buy the bare shell, then you go looking into the market for radars, you go for shares, missiles, you go for other systems which make it operationally effective. So it's a whole long drawn exercise, and where a lot of people get cuts and get benefits out of it. This is a straightforward deal. Take it fully loaded. You buy a car which is a stripped down version like a Skoda Rapid, or you buy a Skoda Superb, which is a top end version, and the price jumps 3 times. As far as the JPC is concerned, well, I am of the view that if the Congress and their spokesperson are unwilling to accept the verdict and the order of the Supreme Court, what is the guarantee after JPC also they will settle for that, and they may ask for something else then and keep delaying it? You talk of national security. What is it that is a hindrance to national security? Lack of fighting equipment, like our men were sent in by the great Congress party and their leaders in the 1962 war to fight the Chinese with sticks and stones? Or are you going to give them top of the line equipment? And the HAL, 2 Air Force chiefs have been on record, both in writing and in public, to say that the HAL is at best a glorified assembler of technology. It doesn't manufacture technology. The truth is that Mr. Anthony received instructions from his political bosses that get HAL the deal, because HAL's offsets would go to some people who were close to Robert Vadra, like Mr. Bhandari. Nobody wants to talk about it. But those are details that are known and they are in the public domain. I'm not concocting it. You can check all that. So don't put facts out which are selective. Put all the facts out and let the people judge.
Okay. Hitesh Jain, let's go back to, what the Congress spokesperson on the panel brought up. The finance minister, while replying to Rahul Gandhi's charges, has cited the Supreme Court judgment. However, you have to appreciate that, the Supreme Court's judgment is erroneously based on the CAG's report, which the Public Accounts Committee supposedly examined. In fact, the government has also subsequently had to file a modification. Given the nature and facts of the case, can the government really hide behind the Supreme Court judgment?
Well, as an elementary lawyer, when you are entering into the court, there is an elementary lesson that is taught to us. If you are strong on the facts, you bang the fact. If you are strong on the law, you bang the law. And if you are neither strong on the facts and nor strong on the law, then you bang the desk. What Congress is doing is only banging the desk. They are neither strong on the facts and they are neither strong on the law. The fact is, the Supreme Court, for example, when I cited that they clearly gave a finding that there is no commercial favoritism, which has got nothing to do with the PSC. The fact that CCS committee or the procedure to be followed, the Supreme Court has said 74 meetings were there. This has got nothing to do with the PSC or CAG or other things. The fact that Reliance, the offset partner, was selected, there was no favoritism was involved, that finding has got nothing to do with the CAG. So what Congress is doing, it is just spreading lie. The fact is very simple, that if they felt that this was a 600 crore deal, they had 10 years, they did not conclude the deal. The fact is, in 2012, the then defense minister says, yes, Rafale is approved, but I want to examine the process on the basis of how Rafale has become L1. So the fact is, somewhere some hand has not been greased, and because the hand was not greased in 2012 to 2014, they are trying to see how they can sabotage the deal, even if it costs the national security of India, because they want to palm their grease, because they feel that there is an opportunity somewhere that someday they can blackmail and so that people can come and satisfy the hand. Therefore, this kind of dramas and everything that is going on. Because once the Supreme Court has given a clear finding, as the Maroof said clearly, even if the JPC is formed, these people will have some other excuse. And frankly speaking, when the Supreme Court has given such finding, can you give me one precedent where JPC has sat over as a court of appeal and said that we do not, we are not bound by the Supreme Court finding and then we are going to set it aside? When the Supreme Court clearly says, the words are used that we cannot have a fishing and roving inquiry on the basis of substance that has been produced before us. If such strong language has been used, this has got nothing to do with the error or other aspect. This is just Congress is trying to use the tailpiece of one small clerical mistake, which is, which the government has themselves gone to the court and they've asked them to, and which has got nothing to do on the various findings which I have enumerated above.
Right.
So what Congress is doing, they are banging the desk, they are speaking lie, they are upset because their hands are not greased, and therefore they are shouting and crying in the parliament.
Mr. Gowda, let me ask you, the Supreme Court has said that there is no procedural lapses. How will a JPC probe finding be any different, you think, from, the court's findings?
See, the Supreme Court is bound by Article 32 and its jurisdiction in this subject is very limited. What is the job of the Controller and Auditor General? To look into procedures, to look into pricing, to make sure that the bidding process has been conducted fairly, and to look whether people have overpaid or underpaid. On the this same CAG reports come to us in the Public Accounts Committee, and we examine things again with a with very, very, very fine magnifying glass to make sure that there are no mistakes. And if there are mistakes, then we penalize and we call for punishment of those who have committed those mistakes. Go back to when this whole story began. The Rafale process for 128 aircraft was in progress. They were the CEO of Dassault had come down to HAL and said things are all falling into place, etc. The defense minister at that time, Mr. Parrikar, whose story you heard today, was busy inaugurating some fish stall in Goa, and at that point Mr. Modi shows up in Paris and suddenly announces that he was buying 36 aircraft off the shelf. You know, like other people go to Paris for shopping, he went and did this. Right away, we said there was something fishy about this because, you know, this is not the way you go about making these purchases. What is the procedure before you make a purchase like this? You have to go through the Cabinet Committee on Security. There are defense procurement procedures. Where any of those followed at the time Mr. Modi made that announcement, everything happened afterwards. Everything was changed to make sure that even offset contracts had to be approved previously by the government. And this was changed afterwards to say it's going to be purely a private deal. Now, all this was clearly visible. If it came to the CAG would say, yes, these are all mistakes in the procedure. This must have happened for some particular pecuniary gain. Maybe Mr. Modi wanted to ensure that Mr. Ambani, who is otherwise insolvent in multiple situations, gets some money so that he can sort of revive his life, his business life. The basic point is that clearly the violations are there, and this government, by submitting false evidence to the Supreme Court, has misled the Supreme Court, got the Supreme Court to make mistakes, including confusing the elder Ambani with the younger Ambani, MA with AA, and things like that. And so when you have a judgment which is filled with mistakes induced by this government's false submissions, how on earth can you rely on that and claim to have a clean chit? You have gone ahead and misuse the resources of this country. You're compromising national security. You're ensuring that we do not have the technological capability to make our own aircraft in the longer run, all to favor one crony capitalist, and then you dare to point fingers at us? Come on, stand up, have some courage, come sit in front of Parliament and tell us why you made these decisions, Mr. Modi, and tell us what we gained and what Mr. Ambani gained, what you gained and what your party gained. Okay. That is the basic problem, and that is what a JPC will show you. We will call these people, we will summon this evidence, we will look at the timeline, and we will say what procedure was followed. Everything was violated, and you also lied to the Supreme Court. As I said earlier, a bunch of liars like this who play with national security and the Supreme Court of India have no business staying in office for a second longer.
Okay, Mr. Gaur, I'm afraid we're going to have to slip into a quick break on the India development debate. Nitesh Jain of the BJP, MV Rajiv Gowda of the Congress, Maruf Raza is here with us, and so is Nija Chaudhary. Nija, let me talk about what you were alluding to earlier on. The opposition has enough ammo on the Rafale deal, and it's actually gaining traction on the ground among voters to influence the decisions they make in the run-up to 2019. Is the debate in Lok Sabha also an indication of how the Congress and the BJP are going to raise the pitch on corruption as we head into 2019?
My point was, so far it has not had traction in the assembly elections that have just taken place. But with the revival of the issue in Parliament, and the Congress will obviously not leave it alone, and a review petition has been filed by Mr. Yashwant Sinha and Arun Shourie, Prashant Bhushan, I think it will remain in the headlines for a while, and as I say, the Congress will not let it go. My point, and just listening to Mr. Prashant Bhushan, why what was in the sealed cover was not shown to the petitioners. Why should both sides not be privy to what the government was saying? I would say, if the government, if everything is above board, and the Rafale deal, because of the security considerations, because of the demands of the Air Force, it must go through, we must get the planes, and this should not be stopped, while all that is there. And if it is above board, what is to prevent the Prime Minister from calling Mr. Rahul Gandhi, from calling 4 or 5 other of the major opposition leaders, maybe call security experts that both sides have confidence in, and in camera show them the fine print and say, this is the deal, have a look at it. After all, this kind of thing has been done in the past. It's in the interest of democratic functioning, it's in the interest of security, it's in the interest of the country.
That's actually, you know, the question that I'd also raised earlier to you. Despite having clear-cut guidelines of procurement policies, offset clauses, and even well laid out procedures on, you know, how government-to-government deals should function, why hasn't multi-billion defense contracts being sort of, you know, brought out of this opaqueness that they're enveloped in?
Well, actually, that's another good question. The fact is that they should really be transparent. You know, we've kind of always have this operating from the dark and the shadows kind of approach when it comes to defense deals, and therefore it leads to suspicions. Before I answer their specific question, let me also sort of bring out the fact that, you know, in the 10-year-long tenure of the UPA, despite all procedures being followed, you know, you have a situation like the Augusta deal, which you needed to be alerted by the foreign courts to tell you that it had happened under your nose and you don't know really what you were signing on, because every defense deal in excess of 200 crores upwards has to be approved by the CCS. And therefore, the Cabinet Committee on Security, where the Prime Minister sits, the Raksha Mantri and others sit out there, really gets to finally take a nod on every deal of a fairly substantial amount. Now, the point is, in the case of the Rafale deal, there are 2 or 3 things that, again, I want to emphasize. To say that procedures were not followed, please understand that when Prime Ministers of India make visits to foreign countries, the Foreign Office is often trying to look for that one big news ticket item, big ticket item, which they can announce that makes the deal look like a hell of a success, the visit a hell of a success. And in this case, while there is enough evidence to show that the then Foreign Secretary and others were in the dark before Mr. Modi announced this, somebody whispered into his ears that go ahead and give the consent, because that is not finalizing the deal. It has to come back to the CCS for approval, which it was brought back. Look at the S-400 missile deal with the Russians. Modi agreed on it much earlier. Only when Putin came to India last year, which is now, we are now in 2018 he came, that's when the deal was signed. And the other thing, let me also tell you, this whole thing, obsession about security requirements, which the BJP keeps harping upon. You know, most of the equipment that is available on this Rafale fighter, including its flying range, including its enhanced capacity to do A, B, C in the battlefield, is already in the public domain. It's available on the internet, it's available in debates. So I think what they are trying to shield is what the Rafale and the French government has told the government, that don't go public with the pricing we offered you, because we've certainly got it much cheaper than Qatar and Egypt got for 24 aircrafts each. Whereas what we've got for 36 aircrafts is at least 10 if not 20% cheaper than they gave it to those countries. So they said, because they see a bigger market here, they see more opportunities here, that, you know, pehla 36 de dete hain, uske baad we'll get the contract for the other 90, which senior service officers have told me that India could be made as a manufacturing, as an export hub. And finally, the most important thing is, I find it bizarre that people who are legal luminaries on this show or otherwise can question the wisdom of the Supreme Court, because the Honorable Supreme Court would not be so indifferent to the documents put to them to finally pass an order which will be based on documents which have no legal relevance. For instance, I do a lease deed with somebody doesn't sign it. Even somebody like me who's clueless on law would turn around and say, this doesn't make sense because your signature is not on it. So how would a full-fledged decision of magnitude of this nature for domestic politics would be approved or pronounced on by the honorable courts when they had not taken everything into account? You know, para 25 of the decision, and that all that past and present tense issue about whether it was shown to the CAG or will be shown to the CAG, that is a technical flaw. Otherwise, the government would not have gone in and said that amend that. They would have happily lived with it. So there are many issues. I think the basic thing for me which concerns, when people do chest thumping on national security, please understand, we brought the country to such a pass, not now. It has happened over the last 15, 20 years when the Air Force has been crying hoarse, saying, give us fighter aircrafts, otherwise you will face a situation which is not going to look good for India, as it did in 1962 and even in 1965 when we were ill-equipped. It was only in 1971 that the military, fully equipped, turned the tide, and we still gloat over that victory, but we're not going to have that very easily once again.
Sure. Okay, Hitesh, let me ask you, the defence offset was envisaged to provide domestic partners a boost. In the initial negotiations carried out by the UPA, with Dassault Technology, transfer was an integral part of the deal. Now in the new deal, there's no provision for technology transfer. How do you propose to give a fillip to the domestic defence industry?
I will answer this, but I must also point out,
yes,
and I'm very ashamed to hear Prashant Bhushan. So he called army officers, senior army officers who present in the Supreme Court, they are liar. He says they lied, what they said has to be investigated. Then he's questioning the Supreme Court judges. Now for the first time, what is he doing is, as a lawyer, he's now questioning the Supreme Court. Because why? Because the judgment did not come in his favor. So this is also something you are speaking a lie. So what is happening over here? Why people are not asking? Look at the judgment of the Supreme Court. The judgment of the Supreme Court runs in 34 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 to 16 is the background of the facts. Paragraph 17 to 23 deals with the decision-making process. There is no mention of CAG, there is no mention of PSE to come to the finding on decision-making process. It is only in paragraph 25 when it deals with the pricing, and when it deals from paragraph 25 to 28, there are different other factors, and the Supreme Court said on the sealed envelope that we have been submitted, we see it is 20% cheaper. Then as far as offset is concerned, the Supreme Court says that there is no commercial favoritism, that is from 27 to 33. Then Prashant Bhushan was speaking that the Supreme Court did not deal our prayer with the investigation. Supreme Court gave a very clear finding that on the basis of material produced before us, we do not find that there cannot be a fishing and roving inquiry that can be done. And as far as Rajiv Gowda, who is talking about Article 32, yesterday his leader Kapil Sibal has written an editorial in Indian Express saying that Article 32 is very wide, Supreme Court has very wide powers. In some cases Supreme Court has done, in this case the Supreme Court has not exercised. We don't know, Supreme Court is very strange. So when his leader says that Article 32 is wide, but in spite of wide power the Supreme Court has refused to interfere, and Supreme Court has come to the conclusion, and then he wants to give an argument or a logic that no, 32 is a technical nature and all. So I mean they are lying. I mean the only disease which Congress is suffering, right from Rahul Gandhi to Kapil Sibal to Rajiv Gowda, only speak lies, scoot lies, only lie. I mean, the fact is, I want to ask two questions. And people, for Nirja Chaudhary, Rahul Gandhi is God. Has she ever asked why did Rahul Gandhi lie that HAL manufactured Mirage in 2000? Why did Rahul Gandhi lie about the Makarov conversation? Why did Rahul not agree for authenticating those tapes and all? These people have no guts to ask him a question. They are piddies. They will go to the Darbar. Whatever will be given by the Darbar, they will speak. They will not ask straight questions. They have no guts to ask.
Right, Mr. Jain, we don't want to get personal here, please.
How to speak lies on the channel? They will speak lies,
yeah,
and they will call everyone liars.
Nirja, would you like to respond to that? I mean, 30 seconds, very quickly.
Yes, I don't see why you should get so agitated. You have obviously not read what I have written, nor heard what I have spoken about Rahul Gandhi in the last 4-5 years. So I'm sorry that you are making, liar. I never called you a liar. I never called anybody a liar. I'm only pointing out to the facts as I see them, and I hope that you treat them with respect as I treat you with respect, and treat any other panelists with respect. So I'm saddened with the language you're using.
Time for one last question, and I'm going to give it to Mr. Gowda. Mr. Gowda, this question is for you. The Finance Minister today has categorically said that there is no question of a JPC. Even the Supreme Court hasn't showed much interest in going into the Rafale deal. My question to you is, what's your next step going to be? And also, as we close the show, just thoughts on, Bofors, Augusta Westland, Rafale. The fact is that, the defense sector is sort of getting mired in controversy. Is it not time for political parties also to behave far more maturely when it comes to defence procurement?
Yeah, I agree. First, a question for you. How do you let certified idiots like Mr. Jain get on your show?
Mr. Gowda,
Anyway,
please,
the
let's
next
not get
point
personal.
is
That's very unfair. That's
essential
very
issue
unfair.
here is about
Please, let's not get
who
personal.
got personal?
No,
who
please.
got personal first? Who got
please.
personal? Huh?
Please,
Did you
please,
hear the
this
man?
is not the
Did you
way
hear
we
what
do
he
it
said
in-
about Nirja Chowdhury? You know, that's the kind of language the guy used. Huh? Please.
Please,
I
do
am not
answer
a
the
guy who
question I put
goes
forth
down to
to
that
you.
level at all. I'm asking you,
Yes.
how
Mr.
do you let
Rajiv
this
Gowda,
sort of
answer
language
the
get on
question
this
first.
show? Okay. Anyway, look, it is something. Oh, please. You, the kind of language you used, you have no business being on
Okay,
TV.
can we please,
Get out.
Mr. Gowda,
The
please
basic
do answer
point
the
here
question I put
is
forth to you.
the fact is, national security.
Yes.
Yes, national security is something that we would all, many people have been pointing out. These are issues that could have been done in a much more consensual manner with people being taken into confidence. But that was not done because there is something to hide. When I asked a question to the defense minister, she came back with the answer saying, no, I cannot reveal things because it's a secret. That was never the case before. And all these issues, even Mr. Raza, if he goes and looks at the RFP, much of the equipment, probably all of it is already mentioned in the RFP itself. So there's no question about bare bones and fully packed aircraft. So basic point is that what you have here is a government that is trying to hide the fact that it has violated every procedure, in the process compromised national security, in the process come in the way of our own technical capabilities in transfer to our, to India, and in the process now caused a controversy which is delaying the purchase of an aircraft that we have no problem with, and I think which should be urgently inducted into the Air Force. The basic thing is, here you have a government that is, what is Mr. Jaitley relying on? A Supreme Court judgment that is based on falsehoods provided by this government. If anyone says that Mukesh Ambani's Rafale, Reliance and Anil Ambani's Reliance is the same, then, which is what the Supreme Court says, then you are in some other world. The basic point is the Supreme Court has made multiple errors. Mr. Bhushan has pointed them out. And even the Air Force officers who came and testified answered different questions than the ones that were pertaining to this particular issue. Okay, so basically, this is there is very much a reason to have a JPC, and we should go ahead and have that, because the Supreme Court should also take up this review petition, reopen this, and tell us the truth about what actually is, what are the facts, look at the procedural violations, and then ask the CAG to urgently report to the PSC and give us a chance to expose what this government has done in compromising national security.
All right. With that, I'm afraid we're completely timed out, but each one of you, Nija Chaudhary, Maruf Raza, Mr. Rajiv Gowda and Hitesh Jain, thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us here on the India Development Debate.